Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This time we're going to be looking at some of the amazing stories in Matthew chapter 9. You know, the ones where Jesus heals people.
And forgives them.
Yeah, and gets into some pretty heated debates with the Pharisees.
Right, the religious leaders of the day. It's fascinating stuff, really. Matthew very deliberately puts these stories together to show us who Jesus is.
So let's just jump right in. We start off with this paralyzed guy being lowered through a roof. I mean, can you imagine the scene?
It must have been quite a sight. And then Jesus says something that's both totally ordinary and also completely earth-shattering at the same time. He tells the man, "Son, be of good cheer. Your sins are forgiven you."
And the scribes are like, wait, what?
Exactly. They're totally freaking out because they believe only God can forgive sins. And here's Jesus just casually doing it like it's no big deal.
So he's making this really bold statement
Mm-hmm.
about his authority.
Right. He's claiming to have the same power as God. And to prove it, he heals the man right then and there.
It's like a total mic drop moment, and the crowds are just blown away.
They're awestruck and they start praising God. They've just witnessed something truly miraculous.
So we see right away that Jesus is a healer, but he's also a challenger to the religious establishment.
He's not afraid to shake things up. And that theme continues in the next story. The call of Matthew, the tax collector.
Now, tax collectors weren't exactly the most popular people.
Not at all. They were seen as collaborators with the Romans and traitors to their own people.
But Jesus chooses one of them to be his disciple.
It's a scandalous move, and it shows just how radical Jesus is. He's deliberately reaching out to those who are on the fringes of society, those who are looked down upon.
And then, to make matters worse, he has dinner with a bunch of tax collectors and
Ugh.
sinners.
Oh yeah, the Pharisees are horrified. "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" they ask.
And Jesus responds with that classic line, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick."
He's not interested in hanging out with the religious elite. He's come to seek and save the lost, the broken, the hurting.
And that's a message that's still relevant for us today, isn't it?
Absolutely. It challenges us to think about our own biases and our own prejudices
Right.
and how we treat those who are different from us.
So we've got healing, forgiveness, reaching out to the marginalized, and then we come to the question about fasting. John the Baptist's disciples are confused because Jesus' disciples aren't fasting like they are.
It's a good question.
And they come to Jesus and say, why don't your disciples fast?
And instead of giving them a straight answer, Jesus throws out these really cool metaphors about a bridegroom and a wedding feast and new wine and old wineskins.
Okay, so break that down for me. What's he getting at?
Well, he's basically saying that his presence brings about a new era, a time of joy and celebration. It's like a wedding feast. You wouldn't fast during a wedding feast, would you?
So the old ways of doing things,
Yeah.
like fasting, they don't really fit anymore.
It's like trying to pour new wine into old wineskins. The wineskins will burst and the wine will be wasted.
So Jesus is introducing this new covenant, this new way of relating to God, and it requires a whole new way of thinking.
That's right. A new wineskin, so to speak.
So it's a whole new way of looking at things, a new way of living.
Exactly. And that newness is going to require some new thinking, like a whole new wineskin, like you said. And this brings us to a couple of stories that really show just how powerful Jesus is.
Okay, so we have this synagogue ruler, a man of high standing, coming to Jesus, begging for help. His daughter's just died. And at the same time, there's this woman in the crowd who's been suffering for 12 years
Yeah.
from a hemorrhage. And she's trying to just touch the edge of Jesus's clothes.
She thinks if she can just touch him, she'll be healed.
So both of these people, they're coming from totally different places.
Yeah.
But they both have one thing in common,
Faith. They both believe that Jesus can help them.
and their faith is rewarded. Jesus goes to the ruler's house and raises his daughter from the dead.
Can you imagine being there?
I know. And that woman, the one with the hemorrhage, she's instantly healed just from touching Jesus's clothes.
And Jesus doesn't let it go unnoticed. He stops and talks to her, not to shame her or anything, but to affirm her faith.
He tells her, daughter, your faith has made you whole. Go in peace. Wow. So powerful. So these stories are really powerful reminders that faith in Jesus can change everything. It can heal us. It can restore us. It can even conquer death.
That's right.
But Matthew isn't just giving us random feel-good stories. He's showing us a pattern here of compassionate healing.
Yeah, we see it again and again. Next, we meet these two blind men. who cry out to Jesus, "Son of David, have mercy on us."
Yeah, that title, Son of David, it's a big deal.
Right, it is. It connects Jesus back to King David.
Yeah.
And to the hope for a future king who would liberate Israel. So these men aren't just asking for physical healing, they're recognizing something special about Jesus.
They're saying he's the Messiah.
Exactly. And Jesus heals them, he restores their sight. And then we have this mute man who's possessed by a demon. Jesus casts out the demon, and the man can speak again.
So many miracles, so many amazing stories. How did people react to all of this?
Well, the crowds are amazed, of course, but the Pharisees are not impressed.
Those religious leaders.
Yeah.
Who are always giving Jesus a hard time.
Yeah, they accuse him of working with the power of Satan, which is a pretty serious accusation.
I mean, they're basically saying he's in league with the devil.
But Jesus keeps on going. He doesn't let the criticism stop him. He continues to heal people and to teach them about God. And as we come to the end of Matthew chapter 9, we see just how much Jesus cares for people. Matthew describes the crowds as harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd.
That's a pretty sad picture.
Yeah, it is. But it moves Jesus to action. He's filled with compassion for these people, and he tells his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore, pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest."
So he's calling his followers to join him in this work, to be part of the solution, to bring hope and healing to the world.
And that's where things get interesting for us, because
Yeah.
that call isn't just for those first disciples, it's for all of us who follow Jesus.
So what does that look like for us today? What does it mean to be a laborer in the harvest field in the 21st century? I mean, we're not all going to go out and heal people.
Well, maybe it starts with recognizing that the need is still there. There are still so many people who are hurting, lost, broken.
Yeah, that's true.
And maybe it means asking ourselves how we can be a part of bringing healing and hope to our own little corner of the world.
It's like he's saying, hey, look around. There's so much work to be done.
Right? The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few.
Okay, so before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to hear what really stuck out to you from all these stories. What resonated the most?
Well, I think for me, it's that connection between physical healing and spiritual wholeness. Like, Jesus didn't just cure diseases, he addressed the deeper needs of the people he encountered.
Yeah, he saw people as whole beings, not just a collection of symptoms.
Right.
It really makes you wonder, how often do we compartmentalize things in our own lives?
Yeah.
Like separating the physical from the spiritual or the emotional.
Yeah. That's a good point. Maybe true healing, whether it's for ourselves or for others, involves addressing all those different aspects, like a holistic approach. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. It also makes me think about how we approach those who are hurting or struggling in our own communities. Are we offering that same kind of compassionate care that Jesus modeled?
That's a great question. And it kind of takes us beyond those individual acts of kindness. It challenges us to look at the systems and structures in our society. Are we creating a world that truly cares for the marginalized and the vulnerable? A world that reflects that radical inclusivity we see in Jesus.
It's like those stories are seeds planted in our hearts, waiting to sprout and grow into something beautiful.
Yeah, I like that. And the more we reflect on them, the more we allow them to shape our understanding of who Jesus is and what it means to follow him.
Okay, so as we finish up our deep dive into Matthew chapter 9, what's the one thing, that nugget of wisdom or insight that you'll be taking with you?
I think for me, it's that reminder that Jesus is a God of both power and compassion. He has the authority to heal and to forgive. But he also meets us in our brokenness with incredible tenderness and grace.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's like a balance, isn't it?
It is.
And it's something we're all invited to reflect in our own lives.
Absolutely. We're called to be people of both strength and empathy, willing to stand up for what's right, but also to extend a helping hand to those in need.
So let's go out into the world inspired by these stories from Matthew 9 and be the kind of people who embody both the power and the compassion of Jesus.
Yes, let's be agents of healing and hope and transformation in a world that desperately needs it.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of faith and life.